Have you ever felt like you are pouring into the relationships and people around you, trying to be generous, doing the best that you can, going above and beyond, even really being forward thinking about what people may feel or experience and always showing up for them in a bind? And maybe you feel like you have a great capacity to do that, but perhaps you feel a little bit hurt sometimes that you don't feel like that is quite reciprocated. Almost like you're doing so much for other people, but nobody really sees you, hears you, understands what you're going through. Well, if this is something you've ever experienced or are currently experiencing, there are probably some big underlying reasons as to why this is happening that today I want to be able to share with you so that you don't have to feel like this any longer. So, first and foremost, it is very common for both fearful avoidance and anxious attachment styles because of their nature or really nurture towards people pleasing to really externalize their focus on relationships with people around them and prioritize other people's feelings over their own, other people's needs over their own, and even go so far as to violate their own boundaries in favor of looking out for other people. Now, that true selflessness can be a beautiful quality, especially if you have a loved one going through a really difficult time, perhaps. But when that is your operating system, when that's how you show up on a daily basis, instead it becomes a recipe for burnout and it becomes a recipe for you to feel deeply unseen. Almost as if you're taken advantage of, or as if you don't matter as much to the people around you as you feel like they matter to you. And that can be hurtful and it can be devastating. But sometimes it's not actually about that. In fact, a lot of the time, it's not that you don't matter to other people, even though you may feel like that, but instead that people don't know that you have needs because you never communicate them. People don't know that you have a boundary violated because you didn't ever articulate that a boundary was there in the first place. And so there's some really powerful things that you can do that we're going to go through in 4 steps in just a moment to not only change the trajectory of you feeling more seen and heard and connected to in relationships, but also to make sure that you don't have to get into these chronic states of burnout from relationships because of always putting yourself last. And while empathy is a beautiful and incredibly important part of the human experience, there's a difference between being an empathetic person in a healthy, interdependent way versus weaponizing your own empathy against yourself to run yourself into the ground and to never allow yourself to replenish your own cup or refill your own tank, which honestly over time just leads to resentment in relationships. So there's 4 things that you can do differently to feel like not only do you feel seen in relationships, but your needs are reciprocated. They're met in a reciprocal way as much as you are looking out for and being generous to meet other people's needs. So here's the very first thing you want to get good at doing, and it's allowing yourself to actually take up space. And funnily enough, if you are somebody who's struggled with this in your past relationships, just saying this at a high level, the idea that you should take up space may seem like it's not that big of a deal. But the reality is, at a deeper level, you actually taking up space goes a very long way. It is exactly what allows you to be in a relationship and exist in a relationship with somebody else in a way that, like, you're included in the decisions. You get empathy too. You get your feelings heard as well and validated as well. But so many individuals, because of childhood conditioning, learned from different experiences that they had in the past that were probably not very nice that no, I can't take up space. If I take up too much space, I'll be disliked or rejected, or I may even be abandoned. So I'm going to play really small as a means of trying to gain acceptance. But trying to gain acceptance or approval through people pleasing and playing small won't make you feel loved. What will make you feel loved is when you can be your authentic self with other people in a relationship and truly share your actual feelings about things and your actual needs about things. Truly share your boundaries about things because your boundaries are you articulating, not when things are just great for you and when everything's good and only sharing that side of yourself, but also being able to articulate and share with people the moment things aren't so great or whenever you are going through a hard time, and to allow that part of yourself when you feel like you're having a bad day or when you feel like things aren't perfect in your life to also be seen and received. And that's part of what real deep love becomes. It becomes I'm able to show myself in all aspects of my life and feel like I can still receive care and support and consistency from people. So we're going to break down taking up space into three other steps, okay? And this is going to move us to step 2. So, step 2, we take up space by first learning what our needs are in the relationships around us and being able to share those needs with other people. Now, every attachment style has different needs, and I would actually make a really strong argument that our needs are more impactful than our love languages because I have a big emotional connection need, for example, and I have a quality time love language. But when I sit down and if I watch a movie with somebody for 2 hours, that's nowhere near as meaningful as having an emotionally connected conversation for 2 hours. So emotional connection as a need takes, huge precedence or is much more important to me than just quality time if that quality time could be spent watching a movie that I may not even like, right? So you can see how these things actually play a huge role. Now, different attachment styles have different needs. If you want to do a deep dive into learning exactly your needs and also your partner's needs or your family members or friends' needs based on their attachment style, I'll actually put a link to a course you can check out fully for free for a limited time, all about needs in relationships and how to determine them and how to articulate them and how to meet them yourself, but also ask for them from others and meet other people's, because this is really the deepest way in relationships that we learn to give and receive love. Step 3 is we have to learn to actually share our true yeses and nos in relationships. This is what I was saying earlier when I say, okay, when we set our boundaries and we say, hey, you know what? I actually don't like when you say those things or when you speak to me that way or when you do that thing that you do, whatever it might be, right? When I say, hey, I don't actually like that, it doesn't land well for me, I'm telling somebody where a boundary is for me. And when I do that, I give somebody the opportunity to consider me, to actually know what it is that, doesn't feel good for me so they can take that into consideration and be a little bit more considerate around those types of things. Now, it doesn't mean that if whatever that thing is comes from a core wound or a painful past experience that I won't work on that as well. But healthy interdependent relationships are not I only meet my own needs or I only ever meet your needs and you only ever meet mine. It's not either extreme side of the equation, it's both. It's I can actually share my needs and convey them to you and allow you to meet them and allow myself to receive them from you. And I can also meet my own needs and work through things that may not be super healthy, right? If for example, I have such an extreme sensitivity to something like any type of criticism, you know, my end game isn't going to be to micromanage everybody how they talk to me 24/7 in my life. But I can say, "Hey, I'm sensitive to criticism. Can you be a little more constructive in your feedback when you give it?" while also working through my wounds around criticism at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive things. And this brings me to step 4, which is really the third part of taking up space as that step 1, and it's that when I can get into a position in my life where I am really able to share my feelings about things and ask for my feelings to be validated and be open and transparent about what I'm feeling, I'm also being more vulnerable, which again will allow me to get seen. When we hold back our vulnerability, when we try to not really show ourselves or share our true selves and we hide, of course, you're not going to be seen because you're hiding. And when you end up actually letting your guard down and opening up and letting people know what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, it is a huge part of feeling seen, heard, and understood in relationships around you, and thus considered. So now all of a sudden you can actually have reciprocity in connection and in love. So If this is something that you've experienced and you're done with it, those are your steps to really practice today. Again, if you want to do a deeper dive into that concept of needs from the needs course, you can check out fully for free. I will put that link in the description down below. And thank you so much for watching, for stopping by here. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you are enjoying it. And I can't wait to see you in the next video.